भारतीय सेना ने बहादुरी से पीएलए को हमारी टेरिटरी में अतिक्रमण करने से रोका और उन्हें उनकी पोस्ट पर वापस जाने के लिए मजबूर कर दिया। अध्यक्ष महोदय, हमारे किसी भी सैनिक की न तो मृत्यु हुई है और न ही कोई गंभीर रूप से घायल हुआ है।
अरे उसका इसका क्या संबंध है? तुम अगर हमारी गलती है तो फांसी पे लगा, लेकिन इससे क्यों जोड़ रहे हैं? देश की सुरक्षा है।
But there is a need for a wider and a deeper discussion on why China is doing that.
कांग्रेस सरकार ने चीन की धमकी के बाद हमारे रोड और वाइटल बॉर्डर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर्स का निर्माण डैम चौक में रोक दिया।
Say Jai Hind. Thank you for taking the right stand. This word Jai Hind, ladies and gentlemen, means a lot. You ask any man, any person, any woman, anybody in uniform what Jai Hind means. Ask any soldier what Jai Hind means. And then they will tell you the story of our history, how blood was spilled to save it and protect it. The beauty of Bharat, ladies and gentlemen, is that our forces adhere to the Constitution. They don't run amok and control the Constitution and its various pillars like over in neighboring Pakistan and some of the other places in this region itself. The fact is, the forces can never be faulted. The forces were 31 kilometers from Lahore, but they were pulled back. The forces had 90,000 POWs in 1971, but they were asked to free them. The forces were ready to build reinforcements and to scale up soon after Bharat got independent. But the message given is कि हम तो अहिंसावादी हैं. Who's going to attack us? Despite the fact that the political person who was heading that arm had written a letter back in 1950, October of 1950, if I remember correctly, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm talking about Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. And he wrote it to the Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. And the message was very clear. This letter was perhaps one of his last communiques before Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel passed away. And he said, don't trust the Chinese. Their words are deceptive. Their attitude is abhadrapurn. This was Sardar Patel's warning that your biggest enemy is China. Because Sardar Patel had said, take the Tibet and the five-finger warning seriously. Nehru had always brushed it aside, saying that they took Tibet is unfortunate, but they are not going to come down the Himalayas. Why will they come? This was his thought perception. Ironical, ladies and gentlemen, we always turn around and say, why dig up the past? The problem is, ladies and gentlemen, when we bury it, when we don't remember our history, when we are made to forget our history, when we are made to say, why rake up the past? Because had we learnt our lessons in 1949, when Mao Zedong talked about one China, when the Communist Party laid down under his vision a 100-year plan which included Tibet and of course the Five Fingers, that included Ladakh, Arunachal Pradesh, Nepal, Bhutan, we would have woken up with great alarm. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get into the political fight, we've got big news coming through. The news coming through right now. It's a CNN News 18 mega exclusive that India will not leave from its territory. We have claim on all parts. We are patrolling. Top government sources are saying our claim will remain as is on every inch. We are patrolling. We will not move back and will fight. Arunachal matter is over for now, but we can't rule out escalation again. We will resolve these issues diplomatically We will talk militarily and diplomatically both. Our soldiers fought well and perfect reply was given. We maintain that their claims are wrong and we will continue to patrol our areas. We don't see any full-scale war on this issue. Two main reasons. Now, this is what the intelligence analysis is, that Xi Jinping is domestically on the back foot because of the COVID escalation. He was forced to give and relent, given to the massive protests. And the Northeast is vulnerable because here terrain is very uneven. We are on the low in many areas, and China understands that if they manage this area, they can cut this part from the rest of the world soon, carve it out. Now, this has always been their agenda, ladies and gentlemen. Since 1949, they have had this agenda. Imagine when they were trying to build a road across Aksai Chin. The map of 1842 drawn by the British themselves made Aksai Chin an integral part of Bharat. They were building a road then, and we looked the other way. In fact, the Prime Minister of that time, later, a few years later, turned around and said, and that too, nobody even knows where Ladakh is on the map, not even a blade of grass grows there. So our history should teach us a lot of lessons, not to trust this entity. And this entity only understands might. They do not understand softness. If they hit you once, you turn back and hit them 4 times, push them back 5 feet, and you stay those 5 feet. You don't come back. That's the mistake we have done. That is the mistake so far we are given to understand we have been doing. Because this disengagement means you go back to your position. Point is, they are in our positions over the last many decades. Let's take it back inch by inch, just like they have taken inch by inch. If we have the political will, our forces can do it. That's the difference, ladies and gentlemen. The soldier on the ground has stood to defend every inch of Bharat. But if the soldier on ground is told to hang back and say, don't do anything, don't build infrastructure, don't modernize, don't become efficient, because वहां सड़कें नहीं बनेंगी तो वो अंदर नहीं आ पाएंगे. Well, this was the thought till the early 2000s. And Mr. A.K. Antony is on record in 2013 saying it कि हमने सड़कें बनानी शुरू कर दी, इसीलिए चीनी upset हो रहे हैं. So till 2000 we were not building infrastructure. Let's get into our political fight, because this is a legacy war. Aparajita Sarangi, national spokesperson of the BJP, she's also an MP, joins us. Waris Pathan, national spokesperson of the AIMIM, with us. Namaste. वारिस पठान, कोई आपके घर में घुसता है तो आप क्या करोगे? उसको मार के भगाओगे ना? After that, what?
देखो आनंद, first and foremost, I salute the Anand. Now may I?
Yes, please.
Anand, first and foremost, I salute the brave soldiers who hit the Chinese so well that they had to run away from Tawang. Secondly, our question is to the Prime Minister of our country. Why is he silent? Why is he not showing the Lal Aankh or the 56-inch chest? When the Chinese are every now and then they are trying to enter into territory, and mind you, Anand, they did not. It was not on the border. They climbed 17,000 feet and they were trying to enter into our territory. Our question is simple. This happened on 9th. The engagement took place on the 9th. 10th, 11th, 12th evening, one of the newspapers reported the incident, and that is how the entire country came to know that this thing happened there. On the 13th, today, the defense minister comes before the parliament, makes a statement. We were asking why not to have a debate? Why should we not have a debate on the Chinese? Why are we shying away from it? Let the entire nation wants to know what is India's policy against Chinese aggression. Again and again, they are entering into our thing. Are we not doing something bad? Our military is facing threat from the Chinese. See, we are worried about our people, our military, our Jawans who are there in the border. We are proud of them because they are stationed there. You, me and everybody can sleep peacefully in our place. But today the question is, now when the Prime Minister Modi said, na kisi ko gusa hai, na kisi ko ghusne dunga. So why is this happening? Their own BJP leader said that they entered 8 to 10 of the Indian soldiers got injured
एक मिनट, घुसने
Some
नहीं
of the
दिया।
Chinese also got injured.
घुसने
Their
नहीं
own
दिया।
people say in Arunachal Pradesh, in Dipshong, in Dipshong and Demshok, they are already there. They say that they have made around 30 to 40 kilometers inroad into these places.
No.
And they have made
Demchok is not in
roads, They have
Arunachal.
made roads. They have made an entire village.
Demchok is not in
No, I'm
Arunachal.
talking about Arunachal.
This is
They have
Arunachal and this
also
is the
come
Yangtze
Demshok
region.
and Demshok.
This is the Yangtze
I'm
region.
talking about earlier. I am speaking about the earlier statement made by their own BJP leaders from the Arunachal Pradesh. The president himself says that they have entered. We have seen the videos. The entire country has seen the video. So why is the Prime Minister silent? That is why we say there is ambiguity. Let the parliamentarian go there. Let a committee be formed. Let Madam also, who is sitting here as the BJP spokesperson, be a part of that committee. Let us visit the place. Let us see what actually happened there. Similarly, Galwan happened. Ladakh
नहीं
also.
तो आपको वहाँ पे आप वहाँ जाएंगे,
And our Prime Minister is
आपको
going there and
वीवीआईपी
shaking
सिक्योरिटी
hands.
नहीं, आप वहाँ जाएंगे, पूरी पार्लियामेंट्री कमेटी जाएगी, उसके लिए स्पेशल चार्टर्ड फ्लाइट बुक कराएंगे, वीवीआईपी सिक्योरिटी करवाएंगे, स्पेशल गाड़ी करवाएंगे, फौज का काम ये सब मैनेज करना होगा ना, आपके लिए खाना पीना चाहिए होगा, कपड़े चाहिए होंगे क्योंकि ठंड पड़ी होगी, इतनी ठंड में कैसे जाएंगे, हाउ विल वी गो इन सच कोल्ड, सो यू विल हैव टू गिव अस प्रॉपर वार्म क्लोथिंग, यू विल हैव टू अलाउ अस, गिव अस 2-3 days to acclimatize, so and how can it be, it will not be a parliamentary committee of 1 or 2 people, but 15 members have to go, they will all go, so the Fauj will take care of the netas who want to go and see कि वहाँ क्या हुआ, ये कहाँ पे लाइन है, किधर मारा, कहां तक भागे और कहां पे आए, फिर वापस आके नहीं हम जाके देख के आए. So this is what you want them to facilitate rather than making sure that the infrastructure is robust and make sure that जहां तक गए वहीं पे रुकेंगे, अब बाकी चीनियों को और पीछे खदेड़ेंगे. No, I am just trying to understand what's your priority. Aparajita Sarangi, the question that Waris Pathan started with is a valid one. If the incident happened on the 9th, why did the country come to know about it via a media report on the 12th?
Our actions speak louder than the words. See what happened on the midnight of 9th December. Around 3 a.m., it was not even midnight, beyond midnight, 300 Chinese soldiers came onto our side, and then 70-80 of our people, our Indian soldiers, actually combated so well that they had to go back to their posts. So today is the day when we all need to gather together and in one voice commend the efforts of the Indian soldiers who are in this cold, stationed there, and who are guarding our frontiers, who are in the Yangtze area of Ladakh. Now at this juncture, what is the situation like? The situation is that there have been skirmishes, stick and cane fight, and all these people, all the Chinese people have been sent back to their posts and status quo has been maintained. Now this is the effort of the Indian Army and we all need to congratulate them. The Defence Minister in the Parliament today have given his statement. And the statement was extremely clear. I think all of us have heard that.
My simple question is, Aparajita ji.
We actually
Aparajita ji,
went for timely action in a very firm and resolute
had
manner.
the story not appeared on the media, on a newspaper, would the government have let Parliament know?
I fail to understand what's the need of publicizing this particular thing when our Indian soldiers have already acted in the matter and the Chinese people have been thrown the other side. So I fail to understand why should we be publicizing the whole thing. See, when the issue came up for discussion, the Defence Minister had the courtesy and had the courage to bring all the facts on the table and apprise the House that, you know, the situation is under control, nothing to be tensed about. We are actually working in the matter. This is how the government has to behave. You know, this is related to the defense of the country, and when the defense of the country is involved, when the borders of the country is involved, which is so very porous.
When Parliament is in session, Aparajita ji,
yes,
you are a Lok Sabha MP. When Parliament is in session,
absolutely, yes,
2 years after Galwan, when there is another skirmish which has happened with 8 or 9 of our soldiers are injured, why is it that the government did not issue a statement and say this was attempted by the Chinese and we've pushed them back and we are now holding that very ground? Now that's where the first question that the AIMIM started with, Waris Pathan started with. Now, was the government intending to make it public?
See,
or was the government's hand forced?
when the issue came up for discussion, when the issue was raised, then the defense minister came forward and gave the statement. This is something which has been taken care of, and it was not such a big deal. You know, our people, our soldiers are trained enough to handle such skirmishes. In fact, many of these skirmishes we are aware of, many of these skirmishes we are not aware of. So the point remains that when it was required, the defense minister, with all courage and with all candidness, came forward and gave his statement. I think this should be appreciated. And when the defense minister talks, I think we all need to believe him.
No, nobody is saying.
No.
One minute.
Let me tell you, no.
One minute, Aparajita ji. Nobody has said that we do not believe the Raksha Mantri.
Yeah.
What the Raksha Mantri has said, nobody is saying we do not believe. We are asking, and the question that's been asked by the opposition today, and I am also asking the same question, that as a Bharatiya citizen, as a Nagrik, if there is an attack on my soil by these people, this group, that is the PLA and the CCP, led by Xi Jinping at this point in time, who have been called out way since 1950 by the likes of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, and this is 2 years after Galwan, then the government should have been prompt and should have come up and answered this. My point is, ma'am, that did the government not warrant it or deem it important enough to let the country know? Because had India said it out first, had India claimed it first, then we would have claimed a massive psychological advantage over the Chinese and also further push them into a corner, because that's what they are trying to do all the time with us. This is a psyops game at various levels. They dare to lay a finger on our soldiers.
I as a citizen of the country today is very sad. Now you will ask me why. You know, today is the day when we should actually commend the efforts of the Indian Army. They have done the job, and it was done so stealthily, so very well, that it did not come out into the open, and these things should be handled in such a manner. These are very sensitive issues. You know, these things cannot be discussed in the parliament or in the market or anywhere else.
Why is it sensitive, ma'am?
So my point is that
your point of view is that we should not make this public. But when it comes to that is why it should be made public, so that everybody knows what the Chinese are and what their inherent nature is. That is something which we need to know. And this is exactly what they've been trying to do since 1950, and they will not stop. That's the whole point. But Waris Pathan, once the clarification has been given, then why continue to badger and push it forward? You don't trust the forces that they would have done a fair job?
Anand,
when you say that you want to go down to see, that means you don't trust the forces.
Well, Anand, I was just listening to Madam. Let me correct her. Madam said just now that after the discussion, Rajnath Singh, the defense minister, made the statement on the parliament floor.
No, I am saying there was no discussion in the parliament.
We were asking for a discussion, madam.
Sri Rajnath Singh ji has made a statement. You are asking for discussion, I am aware of it.
We were asking, we are asking for a debate and discussion
Mr. Pathan, you have heard me wrong.
We are asking for a debate and discussion on this issue.
Please try to understand what I said.
No, I heard you properly. Madam, we can rewind the tapes and we can hear it.
Need not be discussed in the
tape
parliament.
is very much available with the CNN
Sensitive
people.
matters need not be
We were asking for a debate on that.
When the matter was raised.
Why should
one minute. I have just one humble. I have just one to Waris Pathan. One minute. Aparajita ji and Waris ji. 1 minute.
Whatever the minister had to say has been said.
One minute, ma'am. I have just one humble request.
I have just said that discussion.
No. She didn't say discussion. You misinterpreted what was said. What I am trying to say is, in fact, the question hour was disrupted because there were some inconvenient questions to be asked of the Congress party. That's a different point. My simple point is, Waris Pathan, let's just go back and remember our history. There were voices and conscience keepers who have warned China, warned India and the parliament and the people about China and its inherent nature. Let us not try and unnecessarily scrape and try and look for politics. Let's just back our forces. And I have only one request of the opposition. Tomorrow onwards, you should demand that the government makes it a standard policy that every time we push the Chinese back, we don't step back. We push them back and we stay there. This is what they have done for the last 70 years. So, you push them back, don't disengage. You push them back, you don't disengage. You push them back, don't disengage. Let's try and change our posture and our stature. That's the first one. The second one, ma'am, there may be other reasons which you would say that you are sensitive and you would want to keep it close. But with regards to China, the country must know. Every single Indian needs to know how treacherous this nation is and its policies are. That's my humble request. I thank you both for joining us. Let's quickly move on, ladies and gentlemen, and just very quickly set up and give you an overview of this 3 a.m. clash that took place on the 9th of December. Now, it was a stealth operation that was conducted, and it was done by the Chinese troops. They came in slyly, and of course, over 300 PLA troops intervened in the Yangtze region. The attempt was to capture icy heights at about 17,000 feet, because the watch patrolling happens at 14,000 feet. So if you capture 17,000 feet, you don't need to patrol. You can watch from there. Now, initially, there were only 50 Indian troops. Reinforcements rushed. Over 100 Indian troops gathered. Despite being outnumbered, they really smashed the Chinese and pushed them back. Now, this is something I'm very proud of our bravehearts, and they always do it. They should do more. In fact, what they should do is they should go up to the 17,000 feet and say, now we're going to sit here, do what you want. Now, Indian army pushed back hard at the Chinese troops. Chinese soldiers were given a bloody nose. PLA was pushed back all the way to the command post. They should have been pushed back a little more, and we should have said, now we will sit right next to you on the command post. The warning has been issued in the flag meeting 2 days later. So the flag meeting happened 2 days later. And thereafter, the whole matter has come to light. So many would question the secrecy. Now, it happened in a place called Yangtze, about 30 kilometers northeast of Tawang. Now, India has been building border infrastructure, and so have the Chinese. Both have been building up. Now, China is building a dam around the Yangtze River in certain parts. It's part of their hydroelectric projects, etc. Now, the clash happened on the night between the 8th and 9th of December. That is also result night, ladies and gentlemen. Here, with elections which were happening, that was also the time when the G20 summit was happening in our country. About 300 Chinese troops tried to capture the icy heights around Yangtze. Then, if either side manages to capture the heights at 17,000 feet, it would give them a visibility up to 25 to 30 kilometers on each side. Hence, there is no need for patrolling in the winter months. The Yangtze is the same place where similar attempts have been made by the Chinese for height domination. In October 2021, in 2016, they keep trying. Modus operandi similar to Galwan. No lethal weapons. They had clubs, they had sticks and machetes, because the LAC agreement says there will be no firearms that will be used. Now, 6 Indian soldiers were injured, higher number of PLA soldiers were hurt. There are no fatalities, and none of our, as the Raksha Mantri said, none of our soldiers are grievously injured. Now, China has been building settler villages populated with veterans opposite the Yangtze, and they've built Zhaokang, which was used as a launch pad. There are 600 such villages which have been built. Now, the point is, there have been reports often and times that there are places or there are villages which are being made, but these settlements are on the other side of the LAC. So even if we know that these settlements are coming up, we can't do much about it till they act and they try and transgress. 600 such earlier villages across this entire 3,500 kilometer line. So it's a long line. Now, Tawang is one of the most sacred places of Tibetan Buddhism. The Dalai Lama was born here. Successor to the current Dalai Lama, His Holiness, could also hail from Tawang. So Tawang is also another reason why every time a premier of our country has tried to visit Tawang, China has raised objections. And of course, five-finger policy, they claimed Arunachal as part of it. In 1962, the Chinese had come down to the plains all the way beyond Tawang up to Bomdila. But then when the war ended and the treaty was signed, they were pushed back and then they stopped at Bumla. Now, the simple point is, this trust, it was never there, but now has it been lost forever? Lieutenant General KJ Singh is with us, Ambassador Rajiv Dogra is with us, and Andrew KP Leong is also with us. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you for joining us this evening. Jai Hind, sir. Jai Hind. General KJ Singh, do we forget our history so fast? Do our forces and our politicians, do they not study history, sir?
Anand, they study and they choose to forget also. Thank you for having me on your show. This is a day where we should all say Jai Hind very loudly, stand behind our armed forces. And if you're talking of history, let me start by saluting Captain Robert Bobka Singh, the soldier, the brave officer from Assam Rifles who chose to defy his own bosses in a way and planted India's flag at Tawang. And since then, Tawang is ours. Before that, our claim was, it could be questioned, but he made the second most important seat of Tibetan religion India's territory. He put our flag over there. So, saluting Robert Bobka Singh, the Manipuri Assam Rifle officer. And you're right, history must be remembered. And we should not, like you say, we should not feel less. After 62, we should remember 67. We don't even call it an operation as yet. It was Nathula and Chola,
correct,
where Chinese were given a bloody nose and told that 62 is over. And then we had Sumdrong Chu, then we had this Doklam, and now Kailash. And I would subscribe to your theory that once you get a height like Kailash, don't pull back. You can't do it with Chinese, because Chinese cannot be trusted. So history has to be remembered. And beyond that, we have to also build the geography in our field, which we are doing eminently well at this stage. And that is because all these things are happening. And in my perception, Anand, this was not like Galwan, but this was also not like earlier incursions or transgressions in Yangtze, because the numbers were higher. It is in the month of mid-December now. So China is willing to do it in such adverse weather. And thirdly, barbaric weapons are still being used. So those hammers and those machetes are still being used.
That's for the no-fire rules, no? Because you're not allowed to have short-arm fire, or this one, so bullet. So that's why no-fire rules. So you are using clubs, you're using machetes, hammers, which don't come under that category. So they're trying to read into the lines as far as the agreement that we have with them.
But Chinese don't respect any agreements. They defy whatever they want, because there are conventions that we wouldn't have such build-ups. We wouldn't have 300 people like this. But they just throw it to winds. So we have to remain vigilant. Like what you are saying, we must all be conscious, aware and vigilant.
Andrew, would you look at it as an attempt to try and deflect attention from the protests back home for Xi Jinping, the pressure that he's finding? Then, of course, the Kabul attack, where again the Uyghurs have claimed, ISIS has said that it is in support of the Uyghurs. I'm asking Andrew K. P. Loom. I'll come back to you, sir, General Singh. Andrew, hi, can you hear me?
Hello?
Andrew, can you hear me?
Yes. Hello?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah,
Yes.
Andrew, the question was for you. Now, is this to try and deflect attention from the trouble back home? And also what happened in Kabul, where the ISIS came out and linked it with Uyghurs?
Can I respond to this?
Yes, please.
Well, I think that this latest border crashes comes at a time when Indian-China relations is getting from bad to worse. And for example, there is also disputes over water flows from the Himalaya. And then, of course, this border crashes also is a repeat of earlier incidents. That's in spite of the fact that the leaders of both countries, have already expressed their agreement that both sides do not want a war and both sides need to de-escalate. But the problem is the line of actual control is not clearly defined. And I think that the commanders on the ground on both sides can easily err on the side of maybe aggression. So I think that these matters need to really discussed by both sides, because there is
do you know the difference between
brownie points?
Andrew,
These brownie points of
Andrew,
how many people are into on each side.
Andrew,
it's very childish.
Do you know the
Because
difference between
two large powers?
I'm going to check if you can hear me. Do you know the difference between patrolling at 14,000 feet
Hello?
and trying to capture a peak at 17,000 feet? Do you know the difference between the two? No commander will make an error like that.
Well, I think it's not just the difference. It's really the kind of attitude of the
PLA.
both countries.
The PLA, sorry. Say the PLA. It was the PLA which wanted to go to that peak and control
the
it.
matters need to be discussed.
They wanted to do it in October 2021. They attempted it. They attempted it in 2016. They attempted it again. Now that's not a patrolling error, because the perception of the LAC is open to interpretation. This was planned. When you go armed with machetes, when you go armed with clubs, and you go with 300 strong people, and you are climbing 3,000 feet above your patrolling levels of 14,000 feet to 17,000 feet, then you are doing it with a very, very nefarious intent.
Hello?
Yes. Can you hear me, Andrew?
Hello.
We'll try and connect with
As if
Andrew. We'll try and connect with Andrew again. Ambassador Rajiv Dogra. Sir, very humbly, sir. ये चीनी नहीं बदले हैं. ये वैसे ही है. The Chinese have not changed. The PLA has not changed. Can you hear me, sir? The PLA have not changed. The CCP has not changed. From Mao Zedong to Xi Jinping, their funda is very clear. Problem is somewhere with us that we are not able to understand.
Well, you are absolutely right, Anand, in reading China correctly. I wish as a nation we would stop giving them the benefit of the doubt. As far as the previous panelists' contention is concerned and China's contention is concerned, that LAC is not clearly defined. That's why these clashes happen. What happened to LAC being defined before 2013? Before that, there were no clashes or no clashes of this nature. That the Chinese troops transgress into Indian territory, and then they say that LAC is not clearly defined. In fact, we have repeatedly been being apologists for China in many senses. The 2013 incursion into Depsang, China explained away by saying that, look, that's nothing. And they explained it 1 year later in 2014, when Chinese president at that time, Xi, was visiting. And it's strange that all this has started after Xi became the president. Before that, it was relatively calm on the LAC and along the Indo-China border. So the questions we have to ask ourselves is that why do we agree to the Chinese claim that LAC is not clearly defined? That's why our troops may have gone into what we say is our territory and what India claims is their territory. So somewhere down the line, we have to put our foot down that this excuse will not wash. The second thing is that we should stop giving benefit of the doubt to China. When President Xi was here for the first time in 2014 and there was an incursion into the Indian territory, we said, look, he didn't know that this was happening. This was all being done at a local level by local commanders. And the moment he knew, everything stopped. That is not true, because nothing in China moves without approval of the highest authority. In this case, President Xi. Otherwise, he wouldn't have promoted those officers to higher ranks at the recently concluded party congress.
Correct.
The other thing is that the more we give in, the more emboldened they will become.
Yeah.
And you are quite right also to bring in the domestic factor into the entire equation.
Yeah.
Because she has had a not a good time in confronting the protesters against COVID restrictions. So he knows that his prestige has been dented. He needs to now somehow come up with things which take away the attention from what is happening domestically, both in economic terms and in his handling of administrative issues within. So gaining some territory at the expense of India could be one. It is just speculative reasoning, but it may just be the reason why this incursion has happened. The second thing is that we knew for the last couple of months that Chinese have been building villages which were an alibi for their defense preparation. There are also reports that Chinese have built 200 camps in Dapsang Valley. So all this is not good news. And we as you said very correctly, that we as a nation now need to change our stance vis-a-vis China. I don't mean that launch an aggression, but I do mean that we should be able to back up our soldiers and our army to the hilt when it comes to pushing China back into what we think
but the other thing is
rightful
the other thing is I have limited time, but General KJ Singh and also Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, one aspect with the Chinese is that when you indulge in braggadocio, when you talk up too much, when you say too much, the Chinese don't like it. It always works when you operate silently. You have a clear path and you operate silently. General KJ Singh, do you think that the Indian politics today, the government today, along with the forces, should have a carte blanche instruction given that every time you move in, you gain or you push back, you stay what you have gained, you take it back, you don't give it back. You treat the Chinese just like they treat you on ground.
I think...
and don't make a song and dance about it. No need to make a song and dance about it, but then start doing it hard on ground.
No, Anand, I'll tend to agree with you, because in Kailash we learned this lesson. Because we had that pressure point with us, Chinese came to negotiation table, there was certain amount of de-escalation which took place, certain amount of de-induction also took place from finger 4 to about finger 8, but with no patrolling zones, and some resolution took place in other places. We have somehow find this method, and somewhere all our parties have to also mature up and have these discussions, not in public, but maybe government can call them separately, have this discussion, explain the nuances to them, because public doesn't need to be informed beyond, it needs to be informed about the general basics.
Correct.
But beyond that, sensitivities can be shared in a confidential kind of briefing, and we can have national consensus on that. We must have that, and we should not give in like this, because Chinese have done salami slicing with us. They have crept up. So wherever we manage to sort of reclaim, that we should hold, and we should not allow them to make it. They want to alter the realities on the ground. That's how they are working.
No, and catch them where they are not aware. Let us slice back, because again LAC is open to perception, Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, and we don't need to tell anybody what we are doing.
Well, you are absolutely right on this score, that we need to balance the equation, and we have not been balancing the equation. The second thing is whether there should be a debate in Parliament. Well, Parliament is meant for debate. The third thing is whether we should inform the public and the Parliament about where we stand on actual ground. Now, there are two things here. Firstly, no country in the world tolerates even an inch of territory being taken by an enemy, unless it is too weak. Secondly, in today's age of satellites, you cannot hide the fact that Chinese are sitting at a particular point. And if that particular point happens to be Indian territory, then it is open knowledge to everyone, be it in Faridabad or down in Chennai somewhere. All he has to do is Google. So you cannot keep Chinese incursion a secret any longer. And that is what has happened in the latest incident.
But the irony is largely all their infrastructure development is all happening on territory that they have seized from us, sliced from us over the last 7-8 decades. So that's also ironical that it's all on Indian territory anyways. Ambassador Rajiv Dogra and General KJ Singh, thank you very much. Thank you. We're going to take a very, very short break. When we come back, Lieutenant General D.B. Shekharkar takes the right stand. Very easy.